I want to say good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the press. My government and I have been working hard on behalf of the people of this territory. I'm therefore pleased to give you a progress report on the National Business Bureau and the recently signed Foreign Accounts Tax Compliance Act, called FATCA, Agreement with the United States of America. The National Business Bureau first. The growth of small and medium-sized businesses is vital in helping to build a thriving and buoyant economy. My government understands this reality, and that's why we signed the MOU with the National Bank of the Virgin Islands Limited to establish a National Business Bureau Loan Guarantee Program to assist Virgin Islanders who qualify with startup and operational assistance. I'm pleased to say that since the inception of this loan program, from September 16, 2013 to April 30, the Bureau has received some 23 applications. Of the 23 to date, a total of 15 businesses were successful in attaining financial assistance through the loan program. Some of these businesses are in well-needed areas of the economy, including fishing, agriculture, cultural art, financial services, solid waste, recycling, and tourism. I was pleased to learn just a few days ago about the success of the Power Move Entrepreneurship Development course, a training series by the Bureau to assist entrepreneurs with the development of business from ideas and raw materials into ownership, operation, and management in various industries. The loan program is important and is a key highlight of my government's move towards reducing restrictions which stifle small businesses' ability to expand and hinder new ventures from starting. 107 participants registered for the first phase of the training, which ran from August 2013 to June 2014. There was a 60% retention of participants and an increased demand for more training. I'm happy that many participants found the training to be very helpful in reassessing the way to do business. I also wish to say here that 3 persons enrolled in the training series used the knowledge gained to help them become successful loan recipients through the loan program. This speaks to continued progress made in stabilizing the economy, creating more employment opportunities, and ultimately building a better Virgin Islands for our people. We will continue to encourage existing and aspiring entrepreneurs to take full advantage of the training, development, and promotional services offered by the Bureau through seminars, workshops, and other programs. Now about FATCA. As you're aware, on June 30th, my government signed a Model 1B Intergovernmental Agreement in relation to the United States Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, that's FATCA. FATCA is a United States federal law that is universal. It requires United States persons living outside the United States to report, among other things, their income to U.S. government. The signing to the FATCA IGA is universal. In fact, just to name a few, several governments in the Caribbean and around the world, like France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, Bahamas, Bermuda, Cayman Islands, for example, have signed practically identical agreements. These IGAs are in place to lessen the burden of reporting and the costs associated with citizens and financial institutions. By entering into an intergovernmental agreement with the United States, the BVI and all the many countries around the world that have done so have simplified the requirements to comply with FATCA for the financial institutions within their borders. Also, essentially, we have all prevented the automatic application of a 30% withholding tax from being applied to these institutions if they were not compliant. Contrary to some opinions, signing an intergovernmental agreement with the United States and FATCA has not compromised the individual in the BVI and has indeed provided a mechanism that allows the financial institution in the BVI to report in a very simplified way to the United States, and has also given U.S. taxpayers in the BVI the time and mechanisms to which they can correct any outstanding reporting concerns that they may have had. And also, contrary to what was claimed, this is not about selling out anything. I said this before and I'll say it again. We are doing merely what a responsible government should do. One, to alleviate the burden on the citizens to comply with this universal law, and two, to protect our financial services industry by helping the financial institutions to comply with this obligation. We are aware that some Virginians are also U.S. citizens or green card holders may be affected. That is why since last year we embarked on a public education campaign informing residents about FATCA. We engaged in online communications. We made appearances on different television programs. We held several town hall meetings, which had an excellent turnout. We made brochures available. We utilized radio and television advertisements to sensitize the public on the FATCA implications. Now that we have signed, we will ramp up the second phase of the campaign, where we will continue to educate and inform the public, as well as the financial institutions. Details on this campaign will be forthcoming in the coming weeks. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, this brings me to the end of today's update. Look forward to your questions.
Honorable Premier Sean Rose, JTV News. There has been some resistance to a statement made by the Education Minister, Honorable Myron Walwyn, when he indicated that he will be seeking the blessing of the cabinet, led by yourself, sir, to offer a scholarship for a child who does not meet the legal qualifications. And some sections of the community, particularly Virgin Gorda, where the statement was made during the Brigada Flags Educational Center Secondary Division graduation ceremonies, seem to have a different view of that move by the Education Minister or the announcement. They're saying it's pure political, and they are concerned it sets a precedence for other children who are not qualified, so to speak. Of course, in this case, the student is academically qualified, but not legally qualified. As leader of government, how do you respond to the mixed reaction to that statement, sir?
Thank you for the question. First of all, sir, I would say certainly it was not political. I know that my Minister Walwyn and other members of the public have had similar views and concerns about that matter for some time. I think we all should, we all live here together as citizens or residents of the BVI, and it is our responsibility as a government to look after the educational needs of the citizens, residents of the British Virgin Islands. It is true that the scholarships, and we take beacons particularly of the scholarships for the valedictorian and the salutatorian. These are usually given for persons who are BVI landers, and that has been the established norm for years. But there are many cases where persons may have come to the BVI when, for example, they've been 1 year, and they may not have become BVI landers, but have lived essentially in the British Virgin Islands, gone through the entire school system for that many years. And so I think as a country, as a people, we should be sympathetic to persons who fall in that category.
Thank you for your response, sir. I'd like to move to another question, if I may. The newly elected chairman of the Virgin Islands Party, the VIP, says there is need for a leadership decision to direct more investment to the youth of this territory. He made this statement while pointing out that there has been an increased number of young people being incarcerated at Her Majesty's prisons. Do you think your government is investing enough money in young people, sir?
Could you rephrase the question? I
Sure.
think the first part,
Sure.
was it one question or two parts of the same question? Or?
No, it's one question. The question is linked to a statement made by the chairman of the Virgin Islands Party, where he's suggesting that there is need for a leadership decision to invest more money in the young people of the territory. And he made that suggestion based on an observation he made. I don't have the evidence, sir, but the chairman of the VIP says that there is an increase in the number of young people being incarcerated. And I'm wondering if you are satisfied that your government is investing enough money in the youth of the territory.
Well, let me tell you what we're doing. There's so many things that we are doing for the youth of this territory. For example, shortly after we came into office, the Minister of Education started the youth register so that all young people who were not employed could register with this particular register. And subsequent to that, there was a job fair where all those persons who were on this register were put in contact with businesses in the territory, and several of them were employed because of that very contact. The government is completing right now the establishment of a technical school. And this is again to provide the training that is needed for the people in this territory, for the young people in this territory. I recall in 2003, 2004, when we were in office last time, we also started a technical program at the college, the H. Community College, because at that time there was nothing in place, no kind of technical education for the young people, skills education for the young people in this territory. And so we put that program in place to be able to give young people skills like in carpentry and sailing in other areas. Many young people attended that program, graduated from that program, and many were able to get substantial work or jobs. That program continues, but we also thought it necessary to improve and broaden what we offer from that point of view. That was called the Technical Vocational Program. Now we're building a technical school to provide a broader, wider range of technical education to the young people of this territory. And that school is well on the way to completion, and we expect the program to continue in September of this year. We've started the Business Bureau. I wanted to focus, the first item of the Business Bureau is to concentrate on young people, to allow them to be able to develop their skills, to be able to start businesses where they wish to start. Many of people are entrepreneurial in spirit, and we thought it was important to be able to assist them, to be able to fulfill their desires and have new businesses. But many people, even though they wish to have businesses, don't have the background and training, don't have the capacity to raise the loans or money that is necessary. And this is what the Business Bureau is all about. A little while ago I mentioned the program which has been going on for about a year, where there's training given to people. And I mentioned that there was 60% retention, which is high, and there's call for more training programs. I also mentioned a number of people, many of them young people, who have qualified to gain loans through the National Business Bureau Loan Program. So to say that that this government is not interested and me put in energy and resources into the young people's territory is far from the truth. I think whoever made that statement needs to look at the facts and come again.
Good afternoon, Honorable Premier. Gordon French, BVI Platinum News. My question relates to the audit reports from the Auditor General. I know last time you were here you said that when the Auditor General is ready, you will proceed. Now, you've been accused, your administration has been accused of playing politics with these reports. I want to know, how do you respond to that claim, and what other reports have you seen from the Auditor General other than the cruise ship, peer development, and the greenhouses?
The Auditor General makes reports from time to time in several areas. One of the things that she's required to do is make annual reports on the accounts of the government and the other bodies of the Virgin Islands, and they're to be filed, later in the House of Assembly. Once she makes a report, it is submitted to the ministry. The ministry is supposed to look at the reports and compose a response, and then the reports are to be laid in the House within 3 months of being received. She also sometimes makes special reports, such as the one, for example, on the greenhouse and the cruise pier and others. And again, these reports are submitted to the minister, and they're expected to be laid in the House again within 3 months. I have received several reports recently from the chief auditor, including the one in the greenhouse, which will be laid on the table at the next sit in the House. And there's another one which I've received recently on the hospital. You know. Once these reports will be laid in the House within the time stipulated, and of course there will be a response by government, which will also be laid in the House at the time the reports are laid.
You mentioned several reports, but you just mentioned 2. Are there more? And can you say what are the other reports?
No, those are the 2 that comes to mind right now. Of course, there's the report on the cruise dock, report on the greenhouse, report on the hospital. Those are 3 that come to mind at the moment, yeah.
All right, I want to go to the cruise ship audit report. Now, in that report, which was tabled in the House of Assembly a few weeks ago, there is a section that specifically calls for disciplinary action against the Deputy Financial Secretary, yourself being the Minister of Finance. How do you take those? How do you take that suggestion that he should be disciplined? Do you stand by your Deputy FS?
You're speaking about the Public Accounts Committee report?
Yes, the Public Accounts Committee report.
Yeah, okay. The Public Accounts Committee report will be debated, I'm sure, at the next sitting in the House. It has to be considered. If there's any reports made on any public officer, then it has to be taken seriously, which means that whatever report is will have to be considered by government. There's a structure within government to consider any complaints against a public officer. Of course, when any complaints against a public officer is being considered, then there will be a hearing. The public officer will have the opportunity to give his views, as well as the witnesses be called, whatever the process is, but it will be a fair process.
Good afternoon, Crystal Kaniak from the BVI Beacon newspaper. Last time that we were here, you talked about airlift and a subsidy that's being negotiated right now. I wondered if you could tell us a little bit more about the history of airline subsidies. We know we had Seabourn when the Virgin Gorda trip was starting. Have there been any others? And also, will that Virgin Gorda subsidy restart again this season?
Okay, I think if you want to talk about subsidies, you may want to go back as far as 2008, when there were subsidies to American Airlines. And recently you did mention Seabourn. Seabourn, there was a subsidy for about 1 year, and because it was a startup program to encourage that program, but that subsidy is no longer continues. There is a discussion, which is not completed yet, about a subsidy to another airline which will be traveling between BVI and Antigua, but that is not signed as yet or completed, so I do not think I should go into details about that. Yeah.
So are those the only airline subsidies that have been in place in recent memory, basically?
Those are the ones that I recall. I'm not sure about Liat. There may have been, but I cannot really recall whether there was or what it was at this time. Yeah.
And if I may, one more, very similar to Mr. French's question. I'm curious about the auditor's annual reports. I want to say that the most recent one that was tabled in the House was from 2009. And as you say, they're meant to be tabled within 3 months of the ministry receiving them. Have you received the 2010, 11, 12 annual reports?
As you recall, we came into office at the end of 2011. What has been happening, as you know, we did have a review of the work of the Treasury Department because we needed to restructure how the procedures and so on there. And so that is the reason for the hold-up of recent reports. But that is just about complete, and those reports will be coming very, very shortly. We did communicate with the chief auditor about the reason for the delay. Yes.
So no time frame on those annual audit reports yet?
Certainly within the next, for those particular reports, certainly within the next 3 months, I would say.
Horace Mills from BVI News, Premier. The acting chief immigration officer has promised to clamp down on persons who are seeking extension to their work permits. And what he's saying is that once you're changing job, you'll have to leave the territory. Are you aware of that clamp down? Was the instruction given by your office? And how do you respond to some claims that it is unfair?
The chief immigration officer and his officers have a responsibility to uphold the law. Right? There are also, of course, certain procedural things which are agreed on with the immigration department. There's a procedure guide which has been following for some time, which actually is under review by myself at the moment.
Yes, and is there any timeline in relation to when decisions will be made, Governor?
I have told my colleagues that we need to meet before this week is over to look at those procedures and make a determination as to if there are any changes we need to put in place.
So do you support the view that the time now is necessary for a clampdown?
That was not something that I made held any discussion about. That was not something I made a speech or made a presentation about. But what I'm saying is that the law is the law, but we have procedures which allows the immigration officers to have certain latitudes. In no way they're expected to be able to look at situations and make decisions, but they're always guided by procedures. And so we are looking at these and reviewing them, and that review will take place very shortly.
Yes, the Port Authority is encouraging belongers to invest in the cruise pier development through a certain facility. But some persons are saying this is a scam, not credible. How do you respond?
I find that interesting. I'll tell you why it's interesting. Because one of the things that people were concerned about when we were starting with the cruise pier development last year was that there would be no local involvement. We were, giving everything away to some developer from somewhere else. Now that we've changed that and are providing for local investment, it's a scam. How do I respond? We are carrying out our duties and responsibilities to the people of this country, really to the best of our ability. And we think it's important that the citizens of this country have an opportunity to be able to invest in any development that takes place. And so this is exactly what we're doing, giving that opportunity. So it's not a scam at all.
So are you in a position to defend the integrity of the scheme?
Of course.
In your own words?
Of course, this is something we all agreed on. As a cabinet, we decided that there will be a special purpose vehicle will be developed to facilitate the involvement of BVI landers. If anyone wants to be involved, they have the opportunity to be. And we welcome that because we think it's important. It helps entrepreneurship in the BVI, helps employment, gives opportunities for ownership. I think it's very good.
And you have stated that a number of businesses have received funds through the National Business Bureau. Do you have any ideas to the amount of money disbursed? Total amount.
The total amount of money disbursed since the start of the program was $898,000 for the year 2014 so far. And for 2013, there were $365,000. That's what they say here.
Premier Smith, Malika McPherson. Some time back, government, via the Ministry of Natural Resources and Labor and the Minister, for the matter, unveiled an impressive plan for the Brandywine Bay area. However, we've not heard much since. Can you give an update on that, please?
The development of the Brandywine Bay area, particularly the environs of the beach, important as we go forward in developing particular tourism facilities, and also for facilities for the enjoyment of our people as well. And so the development of the Brandywine Bay Beach involved reclaiming certain areas which was done before, building, we envision having a fine dining restaurant in the area, and also other facilities where people are able to sell their ware. But it'll all be controlled in a way so that people or visitors who come will be able to enjoy the peace and comfort of the beach, but still be able to interact with the vendors who are selling various items, whether it's food or souvenirs on the beach here.
Premier, we've not been hearing anything else. I know there were some concerns expressed by the residents, particularly as it related to an explanation that there needed to be a new road structure. I think it was over one of the hills, and some residents were up in arms. And since then, there's been no word, no announcement. Can you explain if this put a stall on the project, or if everything is going forward?
No, the development of a new road is still being looked at carefully. When a government decides on a way forward in a particular area, quite often they do seek public opinion, and that is important. If there's public opinion which suggests that many people are resistant to the idea, then it is important for the government to have a second look before going forward, whatever that idea was.
And you're saying government is having a second look?
Absolutely, yes.
Premier Smith, do you believe that some industries in the BVI should be protected for BVI Islanders? Do you share that view?
Yes.
Okay, that's one of the.
But it is something that needs careful study. It is not something that can just out of the blue say they should be protected and that should not be protected. It is something that needs careful study, and we do have a trade department, which are the ones who are expected to look at the numbers, look at the quality of the services being offered in various ventures, and come up with suggestions as to which industries should be, protected, or even how many of a particular kind of industry should exist in the country. As you know, in a small territory, if there are too many of any one particular industry, it could lead to none of them being as successful as they should be. This is why one of the responsibilities of the Business Bureau and Trade Department is to be able to help young people and other people look at new areas of development to be able to expand their offerings in the economy.
The reason why I asked the question, what about sport fishing? Should that be protected for BVI Islanders?
Sports fishing is an industry which many countries are involved in, and it means as an industry you invite people in actually to take part in the sport. For example, in the USVI there's what they call the Boy Scouts fishing tournament, which happens at least once a year. We've had several other sports fishing tournaments here in the BVI. For example, in Virgin Gorda, there's a fishing cooperative, and they sponsor tournaments, and they get persons who participate from Puerto Rico, from St. Martin, from other countries. So this is, has been the norm.
Premier, is your government willing to invest or to subsidize ferries running between the Virgin Islands and the USVI? There seems to be some concerns about the frequency and reliability of the ferries and so forth.
We are having discussions with the ferries about how to engage with them to provide the best service that we can for persons traveling between the BVI and the US Virgin Islands. Usually when one thinks about subsidizing a service, it's usually a service that is required and usually which does not exist in the country, in a particular area, and you give a startup enterprise some sort of subsidy to get that going. Subsidy is usually for a limited time in order to get the business established. In the case of the ferries, It is also a business that is very important to the BVI, to BVI Islanders of Travel, also to a tourism product. And therefore, when it is necessary, it is important to support them, whether it's in terms of subsidy, whether it's in terms of looking at necessary legislation for fees, whatever. These things need to be considered, yeah.
Mayor Smith, as Minister with responsibility for tourism, I really need to ask you, because it's a concern and it's an issue that started since last year. Many of the persons in the tourism sector, particularly bar and owners of restaurants who tend to go late in the night, they're concerned and they're saying that the liquor license issuing situation and the removal of some nightclub licenses is causing a dwindle, or let's say a decrease in the nightlife offering for the territory and affecting the tourism sector. Have you heard of this?
I have heard of the concern, and I must tell you that the concerns have been heard and they have been responded to. There's a committee in place right now who are looking at this area and will come up with recommendations very soon, I'm told, on the way forward in this particular circumstance.
But can you say what caused the problem? Why were some of the licenses taken away? Because they said that they don't know, it just happened, and they're trying to get answers.
I'm not sure of license being taken away. I think when you apply for liquor licenses, there are certain conditions that must be met. In fact, there's a hearing before the magistrate who one determines whether you get a liquor license or not. Some people may have been operating while they're waiting for such a license, in which case they're the ones, I think, who would have been affected and been asked to close. But as I said again, the whole question of the administering of the liquor license regime is being reviewed as we speak.
Who administers it, or?
The entire gamut of the liquor licenses. It actually falls under the governor's portfolio, and he's put together a team to review it.
I know the BVI has one of the lowest crime rates in the entire world, but last week the first murder was recorded in the territory. As Premier, what do you have to say regarding crime and especially?
Of course, I'm very grateful that it happened, and I want to sympathize deeply with the family of the person who died. I will also say that, as you mentioned, it was the first murder. It is being investigated to determine what happened. I'd also like to say that, as I said, just as you mentioned before, it's the first murder, and the BVI remains still one of the safest places in the Caribbean.
And we thought one minimum sentence.
That is being looked at as, again, something will come to be coming to those that when the review is complete. Just like to throw in another bit of information which you may have heard, that Travel and Leisure magazine cited the Virgin Gorda as the #1 island in the Caribbean for 2014. I think that is something which we all welcome. It's a good fillip for our tourism industry in the BVI. Thank you very much.